Hello, this is Adam Stoughton back with you again for week 3 in AER220. Hopefully you're enjoying the first two weeks materials as well as the Jefferson Online Ground School. So just as the other previous weeks, first thing I want to top off with is the current materials that you're supposed to be going through this week. This week you're going to have 3 sections in the readings and 2 ground lessons via the online Jefferson Ground School. Of course, as previously discussed, the readings supplement the online ground school. Now, the online ground school is required, and we are keeping track to make sure that you're keeping up on that. So please ensure that you have those conducted first and foremost. Now, in addition to that, for the discussion, we're going to talk a little about clearances. So it's going to be important that you actually listen to clearances. Kind of a pro tip on keeping up in this course, as well as learning what you need to out of listening to the clearances. Listen to a clearance delivery frequency somewhere. The approach clearances and departure frequencies or clearances are very important as well. But will you hear the most beneficial is going to be the clearance delivery frequency. So if you can find that, liveatc.net or something to that effect, take a look at clearance delivery for a particular airport. Really good one is Washington Dulles. They don't have something called a PDC, which is an electronic pre-departure clearance frequency that uses a computer to talk to another computer. So you'll hear a very busy clearance delivery frequency with Washington Dulles. That's IAD. So with the material with week 3, you're going to be entering into instrument navigation, where we've talked about the basics of the inside of the aircraft instrumentation, as well as some of the methods by which you get your instrument rating. Now we're progressing in how to actually use these instruments. So it's going to start off with VOR navigation. Now in private, you probably had some introduction to VOR, but I've got to let you know right now, instrument is going to take that and expand it much wider. So it's very important that you understand the concepts of VOR navigation, as well as how a VOR indicator of particular types would work. So you're going to be introduced, if you're not familiar with already, to an HSI. Now, an HSI is a horizontal situation indicator. This is going to be a primary instrument for you for the rest of your career. Many of our aircraft have HSIs in them. Very few don't, but some might not. So it's important you understand how to do it with or without an HSI. But the situational awareness presented by an HSI is extremely beneficial as long as you know how to use it. So after that, you're going to look at a little bit more about how the VOR works, as well as navigating VOR, including the zone of confusion and the cone of confusion, and how that affects the instrument indications. You can learn how to intercept and track, and now that might sound pretty simple at first glance. Intercepting and tracking, there is actually a procedure behind that, and if you look in the Maneuvers and Standards Handbook, you'll find that in there. Now, in addition to that, you'll probably see something to the effect of time and distance calculations using VOR. This is a very handy tool to have, but not necessarily one that you would use very routinely in real life. So keep in mind that the Jefferson test book will cover it, the GL will probably cover it, and you might even see that in your knowledge test, but it's not something you're probably going to have to complete with your CFI. You're going to move into different types of RNAV. Now, RNAV is short for Area Navigation, which is an umbrella term that covers RNP, GPS, WAAS, which is commonly called WAAS, as well as GBAS, which is a ground-based augmentation system. There's many facets to GPS that you might not have taken in consideration going through your private pilot training. But now that you're learning how to fly instruments, you'll get a lot more integration with this GPS. It's becoming quite the primary nav aid for instrument. There might be some reference to NDBs, but none of our aircraft have NDBs, so don't worry so much about conducting that in the airplane. Then after that, you're going to move on to air traffic control. Now, this is your best buddy. This guy's going to help you out throughout your flight from start to finish. You're going to be very in tune with what he's telling you, as well as how to ask him properly for the correct clearances. So you'll get an expanded use of the ATC system. And in some cases, you might not have radar, so you have to learn how to deal with ATC in a non-radar environment, which is a little different. IFR clearances can be pretty confusing, so it's important that you understand the ins and outs and the differences between different types of IFR clearances. For example, a terminal en route clearance can be dropped on you. Now, this happens a lot in the San Diego or LA area because there are so many airports in so close proximity, but you maybe wouldn't find it out in the Midwest. But there have been times when I've been out flying in places I didn't expect something like that to pop up, and that type of clearance was assigned to me where I had to do some research to refresh my memory on what it was. So ensure that you take a look at the approach clearances as well as the responsibilities associated with them. It's a lot of material, and we're getting into the meat and potatoes of this course at this point in time. So try and stay on top of your studies, and if you're getting behind, kind of give me a heads up to see where I can help you. So look forward to talking to you again for week 4.